My name is Olivia, I'm 33, and nothing could have prepared me for the night my dad looked me dead in the eye and asked, $500,000, what did you do with it? I froze. $500,000? I had no idea what he was talking about, but my sister's face turning pale told me she did. Where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more family drama, betrayal, and emotional courage. I'll never forget that evening, it's burned into my memory like a scar that refuses to fade. Dinner at my parents' house was supposed to be casual, a rare chance to reconnect after months of distance. I walked in expecting small talk, awkward laughter, maybe a little tension, because there was always tension, but nothing could have prepared me for what actually happened. We were halfway through the meal, the clinking of forks on plates filling the silence, when my dad put his fork down with a sharp clink. His eyes locked onto me, his voice steady but unnervingly cold. Olivia, what did you do with the $500,000? For a second, I thought I misheard him. My fork hovered in midair, the steam from the food rising between us. Excuse me? I whispered, my throat tightening. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, his stare unblinking. The $500,000, Olivia. What did you do with it? The room spun. My hands turned clammy. I blinked at him, then at my mom, who shifted uncomfortably in her chair. But it wasn't her I noticed most, it was my sister, Claire. She went pale instantly, her eyes darting to her lap, then back at me, as if silently begging me not to say something, or maybe not to notice her. I don't know what you're talking about, I stammered, my voice shaking. What 500,000? The silence that followed was suffocating. The only sound was the faint tick of the wall clock. Then my mom spoke, her tone cautious, like she was trying to calm a storm before it erupted. Maybe we should talk about this later. No, Margaret, Dad snapped, his eyes never leaving mine. We'll talk about it now. I felt my stomach twist. I don't have $500,000, I said firmly, though my voice trembled. I've never even seen that kind of money. Claire shifted in her chair again, pressing her napkin to her lips as though she might be sick. Her silence was louder than any words. Dad leaned back, crossing his arms. So you're telling me you don't know anything about the loan that was taken out in your name? A loan for $500,000? The word loan hit me like a punch. My heart pounded so hard I thought everyone at the table could hear it. A loan? In my name? I nearly choked on the words. No. No way. There has to be a mistake. Mom placed her hand gently over Dad's, as though urging him to ease up, but he shook her off. It's no mistake. The bank called me last week. They wanted to confirm repayment plans. Imagine my surprise, Olivia, when your name was attached to that loan. I couldn't breathe. My appetite evaporated, leaving only dread churning in my stomach. I searched their faces, Mom's worried eyes, Dad's rigid jaw, Claire's pale, guilty silence. And suddenly, I knew. Claire, my voice cracked. What do you know about this? Her head jerked up. Me? Nothing, she blurted, too quickly, her voice an octave higher than usual. Why would you even ask me that? Dad's gaze shifted toward her, sharp and questioning, but she avoided it. Instead, she turned on me, her words laced with venom. Don't you dare try to blame me. You've always been jealous because Dad trusts me more. Jealous? The word stung like acid. I let out a bitter laugh, though it sounded more like a sob. Jealous of what, Claire? Being accused of stealing $500,000? The tension thickened. Mom tried again, her voice strained. Please, both of you, calm down. But Dad slammed his hand on the table, making the plates rattle. I don't care about your petty fights. What I care about is the money. This isn't just about you, Olivia. If you've dragged this family into some kind of mess, we need to know now. His words pierced me deeper than he realized. Dragged this family into a mess. It was like he'd already judged me guilty, without even hearing me out. I didn't take out a loan, I shouted, louder than I intended. My hands shook as I slammed my fork down. I don't have $500,000. Why would I? Do you honestly think I'm hiding something like that? My voice echoed in the dining room, bouncing off the walls, but no one rushed to comfort me. Instead, there was a chilling silence, broken only when Claire whispered, almost too quietly to hear. Maybe she did. Those 3 words cut deeper than any scream. My own sister, blood, was planting seeds of doubt right in front of my parents. I felt tears sting my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Unbelievable, I muttered, pushing back my chair. If you all think I stole money I didn't even know existed, then there's nothing left to say. I grabbed my coat from the back of the chair, my hands trembling as I slid it on. Dad's voice stopped me at the doorway. If you walk out, Olivia, you're admitting guilt. I froze, my back to them, my chest heaving. Slowly, I turned, my eyes blazing with a mixture of fury and heartbreak. No, I said, my voice low but steady. If I walk out, it's because you've already decided I'm guilty. And there's nothing I can do to change your minds. Claire looked down, guilt flashing across her face for a split second. But neither Mom nor Dad spoke. So I walked out. The night air hit me like ice, sharp and unforgiving. My heart pounded in my chest, my thoughts racing. $500,000. A loan in my name. My own family turning against me. As I stood there in the driveway, staring at the glow of their dining room window, I knew this was just the beginning. Something was terribly wrong, and I was going to uncover the truth, whether my family wanted me to or not. The night air clung to me like a second skin, sharp and bitter, filling my lungs with each shaky breath. I stood frozen in the driveway, staring at the warm glow spilling from the dining room window. Inside, my family was probably still sitting at that table, whispering about me, dissecting my every reaction. $500,000. A loan in my name. And somehow, my own father believed I was capable of lying to them all. I wrapped my coat tighter around me, but the chill wasn't just from the weather. It was deeper, gnawing at me from the inside out. I'd walked out to prove a point that I wasn't going to beg them to believe me, but now, alone in the dark, doubt began to seep in. Not doubt about my innocence, but about something far worse. If they could so easily imagine me guilty, what did that say about the kind of trust we actually had? My phone buzzed in my pocket, startling me. I pulled it out, half hoping it was my mom reaching out to apologize, to say she believed me. But the screen flashed a different name, Claire. I stared at it, my thumb hovering. Every part of me wanted to ignore her, but curiosity won. I answered. What? I snapped, my voice sharper than I intended. There was silence on the other end. Then, a shaky breath. Olivia, please don't hate me. Her words sent a spike of heat up my spine. Don't hate you. Claire, do you realize what just happened back there? Dad practically accused me of stealing $500,000. And you sat there and let him. I didn't mean to, she whispered. I didn't know what to say. You could have said the truth, I shot back. If you know something, Claire, now is the time. Another pause. I could hear the faint hum of traffic in the background, which meant she'd left the house too. Finally, she spoke again, her voice trembling. I can't talk about this on the phone. Please. Meet me tomorrow. Coffee shop on Main Street, 10 a.m. I'll explain. Before I could respond, the line went dead. I stared at my phone, my pulse racing. She wanted to meet me. She had something to say. The only question was, could I trust her? That night, sleep didn't come. I tossed in bed, my mind replaying every detail of the dinner. The way Dad's voice cracked with anger. Mom's helpless eyes. Claire's pale face. And those 3 words she'd whispered under her breath, maybe she did. It was almost 3 in the morning when I finally sat up, grabbed my laptop, and pulled it onto my lap. If a loan existed in my name, there had to be a record of it. Something official. Something I could hold up as proof of my innocence. My fingers trembled as I typed into the bank's website, logging into my account. Nothing out of the ordinary. Just my paycheck deposits, utility payments, grocery expenses. No sign of a massive loan. But that didn't mean much. A loan could be separate, under a different account I didn't even know existed. Frustrated, I shut the laptop. Tomorrow. Claire said she'd explain tomorrow. If she was involved, even in some small way, I'd get the truth out of her. The next morning, I showed up at the coffee shop early. The place was nearly empty, the faint scent of roasted beans and vanilla filling the air. I slid into a corner booth, facing the door, my hands wrapped around a steaming mug. At 10:07, Claire finally walked in. She looked nothing like the confident, polished sister I'd grown up with. Her hair was messy, her eyes ringed with dark circles, her hands fidgeting as she spotted me and hurried over. She slid into the seat across from me, avoiding my eyes. "Thanks for coming." "Cut to the chase," I said. "What do you know about this loan?" Her lips pressed together, and for a moment, I thought she'd stay silent. But then she leaned forward, lowering her voice. "It wasn't you, Olivia. It was me." The words hit me like a physical blow. My chest tightened. "What?" Tears welled in her eyes as she nodded. I didn't know what else to do. "The loan officer, he said if I had a cosigner with good credit, it would be easy. I didn't think they'd check too deeply. So she broke off, her voice cracking. "I used your name." The room seemed to tilt around me. My coffee mug slipped from my hands, the liquid sloshing onto the table. "You what?" I hissed. "Please, Liv, I didn't mean for it to get this far. I thought I could pay it back before anyone noticed. My business was supposed to take off, I just needed the startup money." I slammed my hand on the table, making her jump. $500,000, Claire. That's not pocket change. Do you even realize what you've done? Heads turned from nearby tables, but I didn't care. My voice shook with fury, years of suppressed frustration spilling out. "Dad thinks I stole it. Mom won't even look at me. And you just sat there last night and let them believe it was me." She broke down then, her shoulders shaking, tears spilling freely. I didn't know how to tell them. If they found out, they'd never forgive me. "But Dad always saw you as stronger. I thought you could handle it." I laughed bitterly, though there was no humor in it. "Handle it? You framed me for fraud, Claire. Do you know what happens if the bank decides to press charges? I could lose everything, my job, my reputation, my future." She reached across the table, her hand shaking. "Please, don't tell them. Not yet. I just need time. I'll fix it, I swear." I jerked back, her touch like fire. "No. You don't get more time. You've had years of time Dad bailed you out, time Mom made excuses, time you threw me under the bus. I'm done covering for you." Her face crumpled, but I stood, grabbing my coat. My legs felt like lead, but my resolve was iron. If Dad asks again, I'll tell him the truth. Every word. And this time, you won't be able to hide behind me. I left her there, sobbing into her napkin, but guilt gnawed at me as I walked back to my car. Because deep down, I knew this wasn't over. That afternoon, the calls began. Unknown numbers, voicemails I didn't want to hear. Debt collectors, their voices cold and firm. "This is regarding your outstanding loan balance." My stomach twisted each time. They thought it was me. They had my name, my information, my signature, faked or not, it pointed to me. And if Claire didn't come clean, I'd be the one holding the bag. I sat in my living room that evening, the sun sinking low, painting the walls in shadows. I thought about Dad's face, the disappointment etched into every line. About Mom's silence. About the way Claire's hands shook as she confessed. Shadows of doubt weren't just in their eyes anymore, they were in mine too. Because for the first time, I wasn't sure if I could untangle myself from this mess without losing everything. And the worst part. A tiny voice in the back of my mind whispered that maybe Claire had only told me half the truth. The voicemail ended with a sharp click, leaving the room suffocatingly quiet. My phone screen glowed with unknown caller in bold letters before it dimmed, as if mocking me. I tossed it onto the couch cushion, my pulse hammering in my ears. I couldn't just sit here, waiting for Claire's lies to swallow me whole. If she had forged my name for a loan, there had to be more. Documents. Signatures. Maybe even accounts I didn't know about. The thought made my skin crawl, but I knew what I had to do, trace the lies back to their roots. I grabbed my laptop again, pulling it onto the coffee table. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a moment before I typed in the name of the bank Dad had mentioned at dinner. Sure enough, They had an online portal for loans and credit accounts. I entered my social security number, my address, my details, and froze when the screen flashed. Account already exists. Please log in. My breath hitched. Account already exists. But I'd never created one. With trembling hands, I clicked forgot password, typing in my email. No match. I tried my other email. Still no match. Whoever had created this account hadn't even used my contact information, they'd locked me out completely. A wave of nausea rolled through me. This wasn't just some desperate mistake. This was deliberate. The next morning, I decided to go straight to the source. The downtown branch of the bank loomed over me like an accusation, its glass doors reflecting my strained face. Inside, the sterile air smelled faintly of polished wood and coffee. I approached the counter, forcing my voice steady. Hi, I need to speak with someone about a loan that may have been taken in my name. The teller's smile faltered, replaced by a polite mask. Do you have your ID? I slid my driver's license across the counter. Within minutes, I was ushered into a small office with a man in a crisp navy suit. His nameplate read Mr. Peterson. He gestured for me to sit. So, Miss Parker, he began, folding his hands. You believe there's been some fraudulent activity with your information? Not just believe, I said sharply. I know. My family confronted me about a $500,000 loan I supposedly took out. I didn't. But clearly, someone did, and they used my identity. Mr. Peterson's eyes narrowed as he tapped at his keyboard. After a few moments, he swiveled the screen slightly toward me. Here's the account in question. My breath caught. There it was. A loan dated nearly 2 years ago, with my name plastered at the top. And beneath it, my signature. I leaned closer, my stomach twisting. The scrawl looked eerily similar to mine, but just wrong. The loops too exaggerated, the letters uneven. Close enough to fool someone at a glance, but I knew. This wasn't my hand. Who submitted this? I demanded, my voice trembling. He hesitated. I can't disclose all the details due to privacy laws, but the application wasn't submitted in person. It came through an intermediary, a loan officer named Richard Grant. Do you know him? I shook my head, numb. But the name embedded itself in my brain like a splinter. Mr. Peterson leaned forward, lowering his voice. If you truly didn't authorize this loan, you need to file a fraud report immediately. That will freeze collections and open an investigation. I nodded, though my insides were churning. Thank you. As I walked out of the bank, the winter air bit at my cheeks. Richard Grant. An unfamiliar name, but possibly the key. And if Claire was connected to him, then her half-truths ran deeper than I imagined. That evening, I decided to test her. I called her phone, forcing calm into my voice. Hey, Claire. I talked to the bank today. Silence. Then a sharp inhale. What did they say? They showed me the paperwork. The name of the loan officer was Richard Grant. Ring any bells? The pause was too long. Too loaded. No, she stammered finally. Never heard of him. Her lie was so clumsy it almost made me laugh. Almost. Funny, I said coldly. Because the way he approved that loan, it looks like he knew you well. Maybe I should pay him a visit, see if he remembers you. Her voice cracked. Olivia, please don't. Just, let me handle this. Handle it. I snapped. You've handled enough. Now it's my turn. I hung up before she could reply, my hands trembling. Over the next few days, I dove into research. Public records. LinkedIn profiles. Newspaper clippings. It didn't take long to find him, Richard Grant, mid-40s, a loan officer who had once been investigated for shady practices but somehow kept his license. And there, in a grainy photo from a local event, was Claire standing just a few feet away from him. The room seemed to tilt. She knew him. She had lied straight to my face. The realization sparked something inside me, a mix of rage and grim determination. If Claire thought she could weave her lies around me like a net, she had underestimated me. 2 days later, I drove to the address listed for Richard Grant's office. It was a modest brick building on the edge of town, its sign slightly faded. Inside, the waiting area was empty, the hum of fluorescent lights filling the silence. A receptionist glanced up. "Do you have an appointment?" "No," I said, my voice steady. "But I need to speak to Mr. Grant. It's important." After a few tense minutes, a man emerged from the hallway. He was taller than I expected, with thinning hair and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Miss Parker, is it? Come in." I followed him into his office, my stomach knotted. He closed the door behind us, gesturing to a chair. "So," he said smoothly, "I hear you're having concerns about your loan." "My fraudulent loan," I corrected, meeting his gaze. "The one you approved under my name." For a flicker of a second, something dark passed over his face before the smile returned. "That's a serious accusation." "I have nothing to lose by making it," I said, my voice hard. "But you do. If the bank investigates and finds you rubber-stamped an application without verifying identity, it's your license on the line. Maybe more." His jaw tightened, but he leaned back casually. "And what makes you think I won't say you came to me yourself? Paperwork's clean. Signature matches. Records show authorization." My pulse pounded, but I leaned forward. "Because I know you and Claire. I saw the photo. And if I connect the dots for the bank, for the police, it won't just be me saying it, it'll be proof." This time, his mask slipped. His eyes narrowed. "You're smarter than she said." The words sent ice down my spine. She said. Claire had talked about me. Prepared him for me. I stood abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. "This isn't over." As I walked out, his voice followed me, low and threatening. "Careful, Miss Parker. Dig too deep, and you might not like what you find." That night, sleep evaded me again. His words echoed in my mind, weaving themselves into nightmares. But fear couldn't outweigh resolve. If Claire thought she could bury me under lies, she was wrong. I opened my laptop, started a new document, and typed in bold letters, "Everything I know." I wrote down the dates, the names, the calls, every detail, every slip Claire had made, every threat Richard had implied. If they wanted to play this game, I'd make sure I had a record. Something no one could twist against me. As dawn broke, painting the sky in muted pink, I closed the file with shaking hands. My life had become a maze of shadows and half-truths. But now, I had a path. The cursor blinked on my laptop screen, the words "everything I know" staring back at me like a challenge. My chest tightened, but my resolve hardened. I couldn't just collect fragments anymore. I needed the full truth, even if it shattered whatever fragile ties still bound my family together. That night, I made a decision. Claire would have nowhere left to hide. The first step was gathering proof beyond my words. I returned to the bank the next morning, documents folder clutched so tightly my knuckles turned white. Mr. Peterson was polite but cautious, agreeing to print the official loan documents for me under the fraud report I had filed. When he slid the stack across the desk, the sound of the paper felt louder than my own heartbeat. The forged signature stared at me again, smug and mocking. But now, I had evidence. As I flipped through the pages, something caught my eye. Attached at the back was a copy of an identification document, a driver's license. My driver's license. Except it wasn't. The photo was mine, but the edges were off, the lamination slightly blurred. A counterfeit. My stomach turned to ice. Someone had gone to the trouble of creating a fake ID with my picture on it. I whispered, almost to myself, "Claire." Mr. Peterson glanced at me but said nothing. He only handed me a manila envelope. "You'll need to keep these safe. If this goes further, they'll matter." Safe. The word clung to me, hollow and mocking. Nothing about this felt safe. That evening, I confronted Claire. I didn't call ahead, I just drove to her apartment, heart hammering, the envelope digging into my side like a weapon. She opened the door, her hair disheveled, eyes widening at the sight of me. "Olivia, what are you?" I pushed past her into the living room, throwing the envelope onto her coffee table. "Explain this." She blinked down at it, her face draining of color. What is it?" "Don't play dumb. It's the loan documents. With a fake ID." My face. My name. Your lies. Her lips trembled. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she sank onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. I didn't mean for it to get this far, she whispered. The air left my lungs. So you admit it. You stole my identity. Her shoulders shook. I was desperate, Liv. I had medical bills piling up, rent overdue, and Dad, he always compared me to you. You, the responsible one. You, the perfect one. I couldn't ask him for help, not after all the times I let him down. But you had credit, you had a clean record. You were my only way out. My jaw clenched. So you used me? You forged my name, ruined my life, and thought I'd just, what? Cover for you? Her eyes lifted, wet with tears. I thought I could pay it back before you noticed. I didn't think it would spiral. Spiral. Such a small word for the wreckage she had caused. Claire, do you understand? My voice cracked. Debt collectors harass me day and night. Dad looked at me like I betrayed him. And Richard. Her face twisted at his name. Yes, Richard, I snapped. Your shady loan officer friend. He as much as admitted you were in on it together. How long have you known him? She flinched, looking away. Answer me. Finally, she whispered, we met at a bar. He said he could help. I didn't realize how dangerous he was until it was too late. Dangerous. My stomach knotted. Claire, he forged federal documents. That's prison time. For both of you. Her tears spilled over. Please don't tell Dad. Please don't go to the police. I'll fix it. I'll fix it. My laugh was bitter. You can't even admit the full truth without me dragging it out of you. I turned to leave, my vision blurring with rage and grief. But her voice stopped me. Liv, if you go after Richard, be careful. He doesn't forgive debts. And if he thinks you're a threat, she trailed off, shuddering. A chill prickled my skin. But I slammed the door behind me anyway. I couldn't sleep that night. Her words replayed in my mind, dangerous, doesn't forgive debts. But fear wasn't an option anymore. If I let Richard's shadow intimidate me, Claire's betrayal would remain buried, and I would bear the consequences. The next morning, I went to Dad. He was sitting at the kitchen table, glasses perched on his nose as he read the paper. When he looked up and saw me, his face hardened. Olivia, he said flatly. Here to explain yourself. I dropped the envelope in front of him. Read it. Then tell me again that I'm the liar. His brows furrowed as he flipped through the documents. At first, he looked skeptical. Then his expression shifted, confusion, then disbelief, then something like horror. This isn't your handwriting, he murmured, tracing the signature. No, Dad. It's Claire's mess. Not mine. He stared at me, then back at the papers. His lips moved silently before he finally whispered, she wouldn't. She did, I cut in, my voice shaking. She forged everything. She admitted it. For a long moment, silence filled the room. Then he dropped the papers as if they burned him, his hand pressing against his forehead. Oh God, he whispered. Tears welled in my eyes. Do you believe me now? He looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in weeks. His eyes were clouded with guilt. I should have. I'm sorry. Relief and anger collided inside me, leaving me trembling. Sorry doesn't erase what you said to me. How you looked at me like a stranger. Like a criminal. His voice cracked. I was wrong. I wanted to believe Claire wouldn't do something like this. She's always been fragile. But I see it now. Fragile. That word again. My heart ached, but I swallowed the lump in my throat. Dad, this isn't about fragile. It's about choices. She chose to ruin me to save herself. He nodded slowly, eyes glistening. What will you do? I drew a shaky breath. The truth is out now. I'll decide my next step. But I won't carry her lies anymore. The following week felt like walking on a tightrope. Claire avoided me, and Dad hovered between shame and silence. Meanwhile, Richard's threat lingered like smoke I couldn't clear. One evening, as I left work, a black sedan idled by the curb. My pulse spiked. The tinted window rolled down, and Richard's face appeared, smiling like a predator. "Miss Parker," he drawled. "We should talk." I froze. "I have nothing to say to you." "On the contrary," he said smoothly. "You've stirred up quite the mess. My name's being dragged into things I'd rather keep clean. That's dangerous, for both of us." I clenched my fists. "Then maybe you shouldn't have approved a fraudulent loan." His smile vanished. His eyes hardened. "Careful. People who dig too deep often find graves instead of answers." Fear clawed at me, but I forced steel into my voice. "You can't scare me. I've already filed reports. If anything happens to me, you'll be the first they investigate." His jaw tightened. For a long second, we stared at each other. Then he rolled up the window and drove off. My legs gave out the second he disappeared. I collapsed against a lamppost, my body shaking. But inside, a spark burned brighter than fear. I had cornered him. He knew it. That night, I called Claire. My voice was steady, sharper than it had ever been. "It's over, Claire," I told Dad. "I filed the reports. Richard knows I'm not backing down. The truth is out, you can't hide anymore." She sobbed on the other end. "Liv, please. I never wanted to hurt you." "But you did," I said quietly. "And now we all live with it." I hung up, tears slipping down my cheeks. My heart ached with the weight of betrayal, but at least now the lies had lost their power. The truth, brutal and messy, was finally unveiled. I sat on the edge of my bed, the silence of my apartment pressing in on me. My phone lay face down beside me, Claire's sobs still echoing in my ears. For so long, I had carried her burdens, patched her mistakes, and allowed guilt to shape every decision I made. But that night, I felt something shift. The tears came freely, but they weren't just from grief, they were from release. For the first time in years, I realized I wasn't responsible for holding this family together. I wasn't responsible for fixing Claire. And I certainly wasn't responsible for forgiving what wasn't forgivable. I whispered to myself, almost in disbelief, "I get to choose me." The next morning, sunlight spilled through my blinds, and I felt its warmth like a reminder that I hadn't been destroyed by last night's storm. I was still here. And I had choices to make. The first was simple: I needed space. When Dad called later that morning, his voice thick with a mixture of apology and worry, I answered, but I set boundaries for the first time. "Olivia," he said, hesitating. I read through everything again. I can't believe I doubted you. I let Claire's tears blind me. I'm so sorry." I closed my eyes. A part of me wanted to let his apology wash over me, but another part was tired of band-aid words. "Dad," I said gently but firmly, "I hear your apology. But I need more than words right now. I need distance. I can't be pulled back into the same cycle. Not anymore." There was silence, then a sigh. "You're right. You deserve that. Just, don't shut me out forever." I nodded even though he couldn't see me. "I won't. But I have to put myself first." It felt strange, speaking those words aloud, like learning a new language. But the weight in my chest eased. That weekend, I did something I hadn't done in years. I took a trip by myself. Nothing fancy, just a drive to a small coastal town a few hours away. The air smelled of salt and freedom, the sound of waves crashing against the shore a reminder that the world was bigger than my family drama. I booked a little room above a cafe, its window overlooking the ocean. For 2 days, I walked the beach barefoot, ate fresh clam chowder, and read a book without checking my phone every 5 minutes. Nobody called me selfish. Nobody asked me to solve their problems. It was just me. And it was enough. Of course, reality waited for me back home. The lone mess wasn't magically resolved by Claire's confession, and Richard's shadow still loomed. But something had changed in me. Instead of dreading every phone call, I began tackling things one step at a time, with my well-being at the center. I met with a lawyer, laid out all the evidence, and formally cleared my name from the loan. The process was slow, but with the forged ID and Richard's threats documented, the case was undeniable. For once, I wasn't trembling as I handed over paperwork. I was steady. "Olivia," the lawyer said, giving me a reassuring smile, "you've done everything right. This isn't your burden anymore. It'll take time, but the truth is on your side. I left her office with lighter steps than I'd had in months. But choosing myself wasn't just about legal battles. It was about reshaping my life in ways, big and small, that no longer revolved around fixing other people. I stopped answering Claire's midnight texts filled with guilt and half apologies. Instead, I blocked her number, for now. It hurt, but I knew that every time I let her voice pull me back in, I risked losing myself again. I joined a pottery class at a community center, something I'd always wanted to try but had put off because of family obligations. My hands shaped clay awkwardly at first, but with every spin of the wheel, I felt grounded, connected to something that was mine alone. One night, after class, I sat with a group of women drinking tea and laughing about our lopsided creations. I realized how long it had been since I'd laughed without bitterness. Dad reached out again a few weeks later, asking to meet for coffee. I agreed, but this time, I chose the place, the time, and the terms. When I walked in, he was already there, nervously stirring his cup. His eyes softened when he saw me. "You look good," he said quietly. "Thanks," I replied, sitting down. "I'm trying." There was a pause before he admitted, "I've been thinking a lot. About how I raised you two differently. About how I always rushed to protect Claire but expected you to protect yourself. That wasn't fair." His honesty cut through me, both painful and healing. "Dad," I said carefully, "I can't go back to being the daughter who carries everyone else's mistakes. I need to build a life that's mine. If you want to be in it, it has to be on those terms." His eyes watered, and he nodded. "I understand. I want to try." It wasn't a perfect fix. But it was a start. The hardest part came months later, when Claire showed up at my apartment door. Her eyes were hollow, her hair unkempt, and for the first time, she didn't look like my older sister. She looked like someone drowning. "Liv," she whispered. "I've lost everything. Richard's gone. The debts, they're swallowing me. Please, help me." For a moment, the old reflex kicked in, the urge to pull her in, to rescue her. But I remembered the sleepless nights, the forged papers, the word selfish carved into my mind. I stepped outside, closing the door behind me so she couldn't see the safe, calm world I had built inside. "Claire," I said softly but firmly, "I hope you get the help you need. But I can't be that help anymore." Tears welled in her eyes. "You hate me." I shook my head. "No. I'm choosing me. That's different." I walked back inside, locking the door with trembling hands. My chest ached, but underneath the ache was something steadier. Freedom. Months passed. The case against Richard moved forward, and Claire eventually sought treatment through programs I wasn't involved in. Dad and I slowly rebuilt a cautious relationship, this time with boundaries that protected me. And me. I built a life that finally felt like mine. My little apartment, once a place of anxiety, became a sanctuary. My pottery pieces lined the shelves, imperfect but beautiful reminders of growth. Some evenings, I would sit by the window with a cup of tea, watching the sunset paint the sky. And I'd think about the moment Dad first asked me, $500K, what did you do with it? That question used to haunt me. Now, it didn't define me. Because the truth was simple, I didn't do anything with it. But I did something far more important. I chose myself.